All right, so we're up to Oizvov. The Rebbe was talking about the difference of tzedakah v'chesed. That tzedakah only fills the void, fills what you're lacking. Chesed means you get extra. He was talking with regards to Malchus, that when Malchus gets the Hamshoche from the level of Arich, which was Malchus, in order for it to Bimamshich to Bia, it lost the five parsufim. Ato, the hay was missing. It only Aleph Tov, but the hay was missing because in order to come down to Bia, it lost the five parsufim. And then when you give it back, when it gets it back, that's considered the level of tzedakah. That's de machseira yasher yachsel, what is lacking. But then your mamshich V'chasidecho yivorchucho, the level of chesed to be mamshich, that's mamshich, the level of atik, which it was a level of ashirus. There's something, normally we say, iato metzuva lahashiroi, by when you give tzedakah. But the level of chesed gives beribui muflog, and it is in a way of ashirus. Both. The Maimer continues to say that the idea of chesed is not only that it gives you in a way of ribui muflog, but it comes from a higher place because chasodim gives even to an osher. We know that the difference tzedakah is for poor people. If a person has needs, then you give tzedakah. But gemilus chasodim would mean a loan, act of kindness. Also is for ashirim. But basically, you see that chesed is even for ashirim. That means it's a whole new category. The Rebbe explains here that a whole new category, a higher level, which comes down because it can even give to an oshir, even though the person is already an oshir. But we say gemilus chasodim is also for an oshir. That means that the level of chesed comes down from a higher place, which can even give to an oshir. And the Rebbe explains it's not just that it gives more ashirus; it's a whole new category. If we would only say that chesed can be mashpia to the oshir, so that means, but it's relative to what he had before, so then that would mean that he wasn't really an oshir before, because look, here he's getting now something new that he didn't have before. But since we're saying it's a whole new category, so that means to say before his ashirus was complete. It wasn't lacking. And now we're giving a new category. Okay, the new category didn't have, but that doesn't take away from his ashirus. Let's look inside. The Rebbe is going to explain. The Maimer continues. So big Gemara we find in the Gemara Shetzdoki lanim ugemilos chasodim hi bein lanim bein lashirim, that tzedakah you give to poor people. But when we talk about acting kindness, chasodim, getting chasodim, that goes also to poor and to the wealthy. Umizeh, the Maimer says, this is all the Maimer of the Rebbe Rashab in Tov Reish Ayin Hey Ampada B'Sholem. That's 110 years ago, that Maimer. Shekamilos Chasodim Higam Lashiri. Move on, we understand the fact that the Gemara says that Gemilas Chasodim is also to the wealthy. Move on, it's understood. Shashpo Shebetzad HaChesed Hilemailo Mimadregas Oshir. So hashpah that comes from chesed is a higher level than the oshir, because the oshir is the one that gets from chasodim. It's la ashirim. So that means that when you tap into the level of chesed, it's higher than the level of oshir. So the Rebbe is going to explain now, why does he say in the Maimer, the Loshen, that it's higher than the level of oshir? Why doesn't he just say he gets more? The Rebbe, I want to point out like this. Could have said, not saying it's higher than the Madregas Oshir, we could have said the Ashpos HaChesed Lo-Oshir, that what is the Ashpos HaChesed to the rich person? He Shemashpim Lo Yashirus Gedoy Lo Yeser Meha Ashirus Shohoyso Lo Mekoidim, that the flow to him will be a greater wealth than the wealth that he had from beforehand. Umashakos, so why does the Maimer not say just that it's higher? Mashakosu b'hamaimer shahashpo shemitzad chesed hi lemailo mimadreges oshir. He says it's higher than the level of oshir. Why is the maimer say that it's higher than the level of oshir? So the Rebbe says yesh loimar. We're saying that in order not to take away from the madreges of wealth of the oshir had before. Yesh loimar. That when the flow that he gets now is something which is comparable to what he had before. Hare kivon shemekoidem hoya choser ha'inyan shemashpiyim loy. So I gave him now something which is relative in the same level, but more. That means now that we're giving to him, that means before he was lacking it. He wasn't as wealthy because now we're adding to the wealth. We're giving him more wealth. Because that extra wealth was within his category, and he was missing that, and now we're giving it to him. If that was what the Maimer would have said, so then that would not be really Oshir. So beforehand, he wasn't an Oshir because he was lacking something which is Be'erkoi. But v'lochein mevayer b'hamaimer. That's why the Maimer explains the gemilus chasodim la'ashirim. That what is meant when we give a gemilus chasodim, you give kindness to the wealthy. He shahashefa shemitzad hachesed hi l'mayla mimadregas osher. That's what we're saying. The chesed that he's getting is not additional. It's not relative. It's not according. It's not compared to the osher. It's a higher level. Higher than the level of Oshir. It means another category. So since that's what he's getting, so then before when he's on Oshir doesn't mean he's lacking anything. He was not lacking anything in Ashirus. He doesn't have another category. The fact that he doesn't have something which is not at all compared to him, is not a lacking in his wealth. So the Rebbe wants to explain that why the Rebbe Rashab in the Maimer says that Hashpos Gemilus Chasodim is a whole new category in order not to take away from the level of wealth that the person had. Because if he would just say that he's adding wealth to him, so that means that something that he should have had before, he didn't have it. That means he wasn't really an Ashir before. That's why the Rebbe Rashab writes clearly that he's giving him something which is a whole new category. So that means that before he wasn't missing anything. He didn't have this category, but it wasn't missing. So it was a complete Oshir. And now we're giving him a whole new category that we're adding to the Oshir. From Gemilus Chasodim, extra, what is something which is not in his category. Zay. So now, the Maimer over there from the Rebbe Rashab goes into explaining the idea of wealth, the way the wealth was in the days of Shlomo HaMelech. And over there, the Rebbe will explain it was such a kind of wealth which was even greater than the previously than the Mishkan, as the Rebbe will explain. Zayin. In order to explain what is it the idea of chesed, which is even higher than wealth, that it's beyond, it gives, it's goimel chasodim, it gives wealth to the ashirim, also lanim v'lashirim, also ashirim, magdim b'hamaimer biyer inyan ha'ashirus shohoy b'mei shleima. So in the maimer, of the Rebbe Rashab in בשלום in Tov Reish Ayin Hey. He explains the idea of wealth that was in the days of Shlomo. Darga hachi nailis shebashirus. So that's the level. It's a step which was the most elevated in wealth. We're going to say that chesed is higher than ashirus, but he talks about first ashirus on the greatest form, on the highest wealth, the way it was in Shlomo HaMelech. And he explains in the Maimer, the fact that in the days of Shlomo, this moon was in its complete state. Shlomo HaMelech was the 15th leader, number 15. The moon is in its complete whole full moon is on the 15th of the month. During Shlomo HaMelech's reign, his kingdom, the moon was in its full and complete, which means it was on the highest level. So what does that mean? The Malchus, as we were talking about before, Malchus is sometimes lacking and then we have it filled. When it's lacking, it shows when the moon is small, but when it's full, it means that Malchus, Firas HaMalchus has everything. It's Malchus there. When it's a full moon means, in addition to the fact, Shenimshechu b'Malchus, Levono, Siharo, that it was Nimshech in Malchus, which is the Levona, represents Malchus Siharo. Hey, ha-partzufim shenechseru, the 5 partzufim that were lacking in order to be mashpi, as we said before. Ato, so they were the 5 partzufim that were lacking. So when it's a full moon, besides the fact that Malchus gets what it was lacking, nimshach bo gam hagilui, the pnimius hakeser ati, it also extended into it the revelation of pnimius hakeser, which is atik. And therefore, Malchus, represented at that time by Shlomo HaMelech, and when it was the full moon, had also the level of Atik, Umahashirus, the Malchus, and from this wealth of Malchus, represented in that time by Shlomo HaMelech, Knesset Yisrael, which is the gathering of Yidden, is in Sfiras HaMalchus, Nimshecha Ashirus Muflogol Yisrael Gam Lamata. It extended a tremendous amount of wealth to the Yidden, also here below. Ashirus Muflogo Begashvi, it was a tremendous level of wealth physically. Va'ad, quoting from the Psukim, She'ein Kesef Nechsha Bimei Shlomo Lemu'uma. Money wasn't considered anything in the days of Shlomo. It was considered lemuma for nothing. That's how wealthy they were. Money wasn't an objective at all. Vashirus mufloga beruchnis. And this is also coincides with a tremendous wealth on a spiritual level. Shebimei Shlomo davke nivne beis hamikdash. Specifically in the days of Shlomo, the Beis Hamikdash was built. The Hagilui Shahoya Bebeis Hamikdash, this revelation that was in the Beis Hamikdash, Hu Gilui Naile Yoiser Mehagilu Shahoya Bemishkan Shahoya Mekoidom. That's a higher revelation, greater more than the revelation that was previously in the Mishkan. So that was built by Shlomo HaMelech. He got the greater Gilui more than the Mishkan. The Rebbe says now that this extra revelation that came down was not only after the Beis Hamikdash was built. It was the general idea, Kaima Sira Bashlemusa, which was during the kingdom of Shlomo. This that it was a greater revelation, Gam Lifnei Shenivne the Beis Hamikdash. That was before the Beis Hamikdash was built. It was because Shlomo had that advantage. That's why he built the Beis Hamikdash. It's not just that the Beis Hamikdash brought about that Gilui, but because Shlomo had that Gilui, that's the reason why he ended up building the Beis Hamikdash. That's why the Eibishter tells him to build the Beis Hamikdash. Why was the building of the Beis Hamikdash through Shlomo? Now it was started by David HaMelech. Av shetabnis Hamikdash nase al yidei David. Even though this picture, the diagram, the plans for the Mikdash were made through David. Why did Beis Hamikdash build the building? The pasuk says, "Who," which is Shlomo, he. The Eibishter is telling to David, who he Shlomo, Yeh ish menucha. He will be a man of relaxation, b'sholem koiner, and peace, b'sheket and quiet. Etein al Yisrael b'yomav. On his days, that will the Yidden will experience menucha sholem v'sheket v'lochein, and therefore the pasuk says there, "Hu yivne bayis lishmi," he will be built the house for my name, Goimer. That will be Shlomo. V'yadua, and it's known. Zeh shekol hagoyim hoyu betelim l'shloimoi. Why? The fact that all the nations were subjugated to Shlomo. That's why it was peace, relaxation, and peace in his days. Why was it? Who? Shahoyu betelim lahagilu da'orin sof sheheir al yodei. Is because they were subjugated because Shlomo represented the revelation of the Orin Sof that shined through him. So it means he had that higher level, the Kaima Sira Bashlemusa. That was in general, that is actually what brought about that all the Goyim should be subjugated to Shlomo. And they were subjugated to the revelation of the Orin Sof that shined through him. Similar is to the fact that they came to Shlomo from all the nation to listen to his wisdom. The Atam Hamiti al-Zeh, so they didn't come to Shlomo, not Shlomo as the person. Shlomo because Shlomo represented that tremendous amount of Gilu Ein Sof. The Atam Hamiti, the real reason, al-Zeh Shabo, a love, who, why did they come to Shlomo? Mipnei shenimshchul elakus, is because they were drawn to godliness. Shlomo HaMelech represented godliness. He was mamshich because that was what rested on the time of Shlomo. Valderech mashekosu b'Mashiach, similar to what it's written by Mashiach. V'no'aru elov kol hagoyim, all the goyim will flow, will come to Mashiach. So why no'aru kol hagoyim to Mashiach? D'zeh shekulam yiyu nimshochim elov hu. Why will everybody be drawn to Mashiach? Who sheyu nimshochim lelakus? They'll be drawn to godliness. Mashiach will bring about the godliness. So the same thing, the reason why they were drawn to Shlomo HaMelech, because Shlomo HaMelech, the Rebbe is bringing out, it's not only the building of the Beis Hamikdash which brought about the higher level of Shlomo HaMelech, the level that Kaima Sira Bashlemusa in the Beis Hamikdash, but it's Shlomo in generally. That's why all the nations were bottled. It's not Shlomo, it's the Gilu Oyer that was then. Just like by Mashiach, the great light of Mashiach that will shine then, godliness, Noru Elo Kol HaGoyim, they will all flow to it. Ki HaGilu Oyer Sheheir Oz, the revelation that shined in the times of Shlomo, Moshech Elo Vesanitzutzis Sheba Amim, that draw to him all the sparks that it's in the nation. That would be bedugmas avuko shemesheches eleho kol hanitzutzis. That's similar to a big flame that draws to it all the sparks. All the sparks are drawn to the flame. B'kivon shagilu sheheir oz hayigilu naila b'yosef. Since the revelation that shined in the time of Shlomo was a great revelation, a very high, an elevated level, l'chein It was such a powerful avuka, it was such powerful light. Therefore, gam hanetzutzes shebemekoymes rechokim. Also, sparks that would far away in faraway places. Nimshchu la'agilu she'era de Shlomo. They were drawn to the revelation that shined through Shlomo. So people from far away, there was a big fire over there, a great light, a great luminary. So people were drawing the sparks that are even far away because it was such a powerful light. And that's why Kamesha Kosuv, Malkas Shvo, Shomas as Shema Shlomo, the Shema Ba'ayah Goyim, Evatov Yerushalayim Goyim. She heard of Shlomo HaMelech for the sake of Hashem, and she came to Yerushalayim. So that means that he impacted. But how did he impact? Because in his time there was a tremendous light. That tremendous light drew even people that were far away. So generally we're saying this was Shlomo generally's kingdom, but specifically it came from the Beis HaMikdash. And the Beis HaMikdash, and the Rebbe is going to explain how the Beis HaMikdash way of drawing the nitzutzes was not through a way of war, but it's automatic. Look inside. Ches. This that we say that Shlomo was a man of relaxation, it was in a relaxed way, in a resting way. The habirur shabiyomov hoya b'derech menucha. That means that the birur, the sorting out, the way he sorted things out, was in a menuchadika way, in a relaxed way. Shaloi hoya tzorich lemelchama b'chdei levarer es ha-nitzotzos. He did not need war to sort out the nitzotzos. Elosha nitzotzos nimshuchu elov ma'atzmam she'yizbareru. But rather these sparks were drawn to him on their own, so they should be sorted out. Hoya ze be'iker al yidei agilui sheheir bebeis hamikdash. So mainly this was through the revelation that shined in the Beis Hamikdash. Mainly the Beis Hamikdash brought about that relaxed birur of the sparks. And this was different than the birur that took place through the Mishkan. The Mishkan, it was through battles. And by the Mikdash, by Shlomo Melech, it was through Menucha, in a Menuchadik way. The birur al yidei hagilu shaheir b'Mishkan, the birur through the revelation that was in the Mishkan, koilel gam hagilu shaheir b'ha'orin shoy b'Mishkan, which includes the Mishkan in general, but also which includes the revelation that shined in the Orin that was in the Mishkan. Hoya b'derech milchama, that was in a way of war. But v'habirur hagilu shaheir b'Beis Hamikdash, but the birur that takes place through the revelation that was in the Beis Hamikdash, hoya b'derech menucha, was in a way of peace. K'di iso b'zoyhar, like we find in the Zohar. Trein inun have the amri kuma havaya. There are two people said kuma Hashem. Who are the two people? Moshe and David. And we'll see the difference. Moshe and David, they both said kuma Hashem. Moshe Omar kuma Hashem v'yafutzoivecha. He says, let your enemies get up, Hashem, let your enemies scattered. So you see, by Moshe, there was enemies there. And they need to be scattered. So he said, Kuma Hashem, the Zohar says. But the David Omar, David said, Kuma Hashem limnuchasecha. Stand up, Hashem, for your place of rest. Limnuchasecha, to the place of rest. David was talking about a place of rest. And Moshe was talking about Oivecha, about enemies that need to be scattered. So the Maimer explains That the fact that the Mishkan and the Oren were traveling in the desert, bichdei levatel es haklipes shehoyu b'midbar, in order to negate, to subjugate, to be mevatel these klippos that were in the desert. That's represented by Nechoshim, Srovim, Bakrabim. The Mishkan went and it killed the Nechoshim, Srovim, Bakrabim. That means that it was mevatel the klippos. And to sort out and elevate the parts of Kedusha that fell in the Midbar. That's a sorting out in a way of war. They had to travel to there, to war out, to war, to have a war. That would be similar to a king who goes out of his place and goes to the country of the enemy to wage war against him and to conquer him. So when the Yin went into the desert, when the Aaron goes in the desert, it's like going in another place to conquer it, and that means b'derech milchama. That's a bit of a derech milchama. You go out from your city, and you go out there and you conquer it. V'lochein Omar Moshe. That's why Moshe says when he said Kuma Hashem, b'negei l'nesiyas ha'arim b'midbar, as it relates to the journey of the Aron in the Midbar, by Hibin Soya ha'arim means with the Aron. Kuma Hashem v'yefutzoivecha. Let your get up Hashem and let your enemies be scattered. Yeshnam oivim. There is enemies. Shetzorich lilcham b'hem. You have to wage war with them. So that's by Moshe Rabbeinu. He says, Kum Hashem, v'futzoivecha. Ba'birur al yidei hagilu sheher b'beis hamikdash. But the revelation through the sorting out that is there through the revelation that shined in Beis Hamikdash, hoya b'derech menucha. That was in a way of relaxation. Shlomo didn't go anywhere. Shlomo sat in this place and they all came to Shlomo. The Shlomo had been Mekoimei. Shlomo remained in his place. And these sparks were drawn to him on their own. They came to Shlomo. And as I said before, such a strong power, even Malchus Shva, far away. That's why David says, Kuma Hashem limnuchasecha, because it was, by David, it wasn't a relaxed way. The Rebbe is going to explain that in some times it discusses in Chassidus that even the Oren was, the way the Oren was mevarer was in a way of menucha. But still the Rebbe says the reason why we explain menucha is because the Aron came there and it came by itself, wasn't isbarer. That's called in a way of menucha also. But by Shlomo HaMelech, he didn't have to travel anywhere. He was sitting in his place. The Rebbe says, I want to point out, in many places it's explained that sorting out that took place through the journey of the Aron in the Midbar. It says it's also a sorting out in a relaxed way. So how does it fit? Here we're saying it's b'derech milchama. So the Rebbe says over there it's talking menucha in the way that you have to engage it, but it happens automatically. That's why it calls it menucha. Ki inyan ha-menucha shemevur sham, who the idea of menucha that's explained there is shahabirur hu b'derech memela, that the birur comes automatically. V'kivon the bittul haklipes ubirur hanetzutza shenoflu bahem. Since the negation of the klippos and sorting out the sparks that were fallen in the klippos, how did it take place? Not through battle automatically. Through the revelation that shined in the Mishkan, that they were nisbatl and nisbater, was it automatic? Aron the Mishkan, therefore also the birur that takes place through the Aron the Mishkan, nikra birur b'derech menucha, we can also refer to it as a birur in a relaxed way. Avol amitis inyan hamnucha, but the true level of menucha shamevarer eino yored lemokam hamizbarer. that the one who's doing the mevarer does not descend to the place of the mizbarer. Shlomo HaMelech he found in his place. Shlomo HaMelech stayed home, and they came to him. That's the real menucha. Through the revelation of light of the one who's doing the mevarer, in this case, the time of Shlomo HaMelech, or the Beis Hamikdash, that Meir al Mizbarer, who nimshach ba'atzma la mevarer, on his own, he's drawn to the mevarer. You don't even have to go to him. Such a level of menucha was only in the Mei Shlomo, not before. And this is also usually the difference between the bitter through Torah and tefillah. Prayer, you have to fight with your nefesh habahamis to get to daven. But Torah is mevarer automatically. Similar to what is known, the bitter that takes place through Torah, the bechlolus, generally when we talk Torah, kam habiru shal yidei galya de Torah. Even Torah, the bitter that is through the revealed part of Torah, ubederech menucha is in a way of relaxation. The kivon shabiru ubederech b'meila. Since the bitter happens automatically, when you learn in the Torah, this item is permitted, this item is prohibited. You're not fighting them, you're not dealing with them, you're just learning in Torah. They are sorted out automatically. That's unlike the bitter of davening. Over there, the godly soul dresses up in the nefesh habahamis, has to work nefesh habahamis. But Torah, you learn about it, and this is better. Lochein gam habiru shal yidei galya Torah nikra bitter b'derech menucha. Also, the bitter that takes place through the revealed part of Torah is called bitter b'derech menucha. That's in a general way. Torah is b'derech menucha, and tefillah is b'derech milchama. Got to dress up with the nefesh habahamis. Avol beprotius, but more specifically, kivon shahabirur al yidei galya de Torah. Since the bitter of the revealed part of Torah, the real menucha is through pnimiyus HaTorah, the inner part of it, because the revealed part of Torah, who al yidei sheyiredes mislabeshet binyonim hagashmim, because it descends and dressed up in physical matter, harezeh inyan shel milchama. This is still a matter of war. This is similar to the king going out of his place and journey going to the enemy. The real bitter in a way of menucha is the bitter that takes place through learning the inner parts of Torah. Then the bitter is not dressed up even in Gashmi, so it's not in a way of even Milchama, it's in a way of Menucha. And that's, the Rebbe explained, was the chilik between Shlomo HaMelech and even the time of the Beis Hamikdash, that in the Beis Hamikdash, in the Mishkan, it was B'derech Milchama. The Rebbe explained it's also somewhat in a way of Menucha because happened automatically. But by Shlomo it was a whole other category. Shlomo stayed home and still he wasn't mevarer. And that's the way is with the difference between Torah, generally speaking. Torah Bechlal is mevarer b'derech in a general way, in a way of Menucha, because you learn Torah and it's nisbarer when you're learning Yisur Heter. But more specifically, the real bitter b'derech Menucha is Pnimiyus HaTorah. Okay, let's leave it here and we'll continue.